but the ceiling is, ceiling's as high as anybody in the NFL. I mean, they're just not making 6'8", 365-pound human beings that move as well as Jordan does. There's just not a lot of them. What does Parcells call those guys? Planet guys. There's only a couple of them on the planet.
My guys here with you on Birds 365 and Eagles game day. We only get a handful of these a year, so we're a little excited about it. We'll hang for another hour and change to get company. As a matter of fact, right now, hopping on board with us is the host of the Ross Tucker podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Ross Tucker NFL. And one thing I can say for sure, he's sweating less now than he was at the end of last week's game. We'll see how much he sweats after tonight's game. Ross Tucker joins us here on Birds 365. How are you, Ross?
I am doing awesome, fellas. I already was tweeting this morning at Ross Tucker NFL. I am so pumped for tonight. We're the only game on. Eagles-Patriots is the only game on tonight. So not only will it be available locally, which is terrific, but NFL Network is carrying the game. So I'm breaking out my best suit. I'm totally prepared. I'm ready to go. And I told Quez Watkins yesterday, I said, Quez, I need you to do that again. Because you brought out the best in me, Quez. He said, I'll do the best I can.
Standalone game, time to shine, Ross Tucker. And a little inside baseball. I know the one guy's going to beat me to the press box is Ross Tucker, especially morning games, which is amazing because I get there.
You know what's funny? Jody Mack, this is funny. The only other guy that gets to the stadium 4 hours before the game is your boy John McMullen. I just realized, by the way, this could be like the J-Mac squared show. Jody Mack and John McMullen, J-Mac squared. But John is always there. Now, I know why I'm there early, John, because I like to eat before I have to do a 3-hour pregame show. What's your excuse?
Well, people will think I like to eat because I'm a big guy. But no, it's traffic. I do everything to avoid traffic, Ross. So I don't want to deal with any kind of traffic and any. So I say I'm going to work at home. Why don't I just go down there and work?
That's me. That's me. Yeah. I despise traffic. I will get places so early or leave late. I just don't like it. By the way, I don't know what happened, but last game there was more traffic getting out of there than there usually. I don't think they had everything open, but I was so happy about the game. And you guys know, like everybody listening or watching, you have to know the exact way that you would feel if you as an Eagles fan got to be the one calling the Eagles. That's how I feel. Like how you guys would feel. I just want everybody to know, listening, watching, whatever, that is how I feel. I really do think it's that cool, especially because you guys know, like I'm from Reading. All my buddies live in Philly or whatever. I get so many text messages and stuff. My mom the next day is like, oh, your aunt called and this lady I play bridge with. I'm like, Mom, if the lady you play bridge with enjoyed my broadcast, then I've made it.
There we go. And by the way, Ross, Quez taking a bubble screen 79 yards would be great. But even better would be Jalen Reagor bringing that catch to national television from practice the other day. The one-handed OBJ-like grab at the back of the end zone just became a viral sensation. We need that in the game. We need Ross Tucker calling that.
I would go berserk if that happened. You know, it's kind of funny, isn't it, guys, that all these years where the Eagles have struggled at receiver, and with that being a big concern again, I guess, this year, you know, it's a very limited sample size for Quez Watkins. But, John, you go to practice every day in camp. He's had an outstanding camp. And you run a 4.35 at the combine, you're fast. You make an NFL defensive back look as bad as he made that poor kid for the Steelers, you are fast. And then Rager's making a bunch of plays now, and we know about his athletic ability. And Devontae did some stuff this week in practice. You know, there's a chance, right, that they end up having 3 young, explosive stud receivers. Now, we'll see if it plays out, you know, but I mean, that is a realistic possibility as one of the outcomes with having these three young studs.
Russ, we got 2 possessions out of the starting quarterback last week. We knew it wasn't going to be a long-term thing for game number 1 in the preseason. We're all expecting Hurts to play a little bit more this week, and no one knows. I don't even know if Nick Sirianni knows how much a little bit more is, because it'll depend on how successful the first and second possessions are. We probably get a little bit more of a look at Mr. Hurts. 3 of 7 didn't look good on paper, but you saw it. You called it. A couple of drops didn't help him at all. And the one pass to Watkins was just slightly overthrown. If he had cut that just a little bit, then that's a major play that we're all talking about for the next however many weeks, if not years. How much more do you think we're going to see out of Jalen Hurts tonight if Nick Sirianni gets what he wants out of his quarterback?
I don't know, Jody Mack, just in the sense that after those 2 joint practices with the Patriots, different guys play it differently. Some guys will still have their guys play a lot. Some guys won't. Obviously we'll find out tonight what the Eagles' plan is. But the point I want to make that you referenced, I thought Jalen Hurts played really well. I mean, I told somebody the other day, if the O-line stays healthy and the D-line stays healthy, and Hurts just plays like he did on those 2 series, the Eagles will be a lot better than people think they are going to be. I know the expectations are low, which I kind of like because I feel like they're going to exceed them. But, I mean, the throw he made to Dallas Goedert was terrific in rhythm. Even the first play where he bought some time and then found Ertz, I thought was a really smooth play operationally from Hurts. Obviously, Ertz had a very uncharacteristic drop on a 3rd down that would have continued that drive, forced the field goal. His throw to Reagor wasn't great, but I think even Reagor would tell you he should have caught that one. And then the Watkins one is interesting. Now, maybe Hurts could have put a little more air under it, but Watkins got bumped off a little bit later on in the route. The guy got a hand on him. And when you're talking about, people don't realize this, like you're talking about like a ball 50 yards in the air, right? The timing has to be really on that. So Watkins getting bumped a little bit, I think, is why he wasn't quite able to get there. But just the fact that Watkins was able to dust a Steelers corner, I mean, he had him by 3 steps. I mean, once he got off that second bump, he had the dude by 3 steps. And then the other incompletion was Hurts just throwing the ball away. So I thought he played really well, certainly better than anybody looking at the box score would think.
Yeah, and I think Nick Sirianni described it as crisp, raw. So I think he played very well. You're right. Small sample size, 10 snaps. And by the way, Jalen brought up that play to Quez. He mentioned he got bumped. It throws off the timing. Also, they were backed up, and he said, my first job essentially as a quarterback, don't take the safety. So he probably did hurry it a little bit and got it out a little bit quickly. And I think that's good from a football IQ standpoint, that he's realizing, look, there's one thing I can't do here, and that's take a safety. I do want to shift to what you said. If the offensive line, we all know Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson, they have looked unbelievable. The defensive line on this team has looked dominant. Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, before he tweaked his ankle. I don't think he's going to play tonight. But I do want to bring up this to you as a former NFL player. When I hear if, all those ifs aren't going to go in a positive direction. Some of them are going to go in a negative direction. So how concerning is the uncertainty of so many ifs? If this happens, if that happens, if this happens.
It's a fair point, because what I always say is when people are talking to me what I think who the Super Bowl contenders are or what a team's record will be, it really just comes down to how many questions are there, right? Like how many questions are there about the team and what are they? Whereas there are other, teams, the Chiefs or whoever, maybe the Buffalo Bills, where there aren't really that many questions. So the Eagles certainly have more questions than a lot of these other teams. But, John, what team is it where if the O-line gets hurt, they're just totally fine, right? Like, I know it's if the O-line is healthy and if the D-line is healthy, but they're saying that for every team. And by the way, Eagles actually have pretty good offensive line depth. You know, because of what happened last year, they got a lot of dudes that have played a bunch of games, whether it's Pryor or Driscoll or Herbig. They'll eventually get Landon Dickerson. So I think that they are better suited to sustain an injury if one happens this year.
Russ, you saw week number 1. You've been down to practices several times. You certainly saw the Birds play all their games last year. They've got an interesting battle on their own defensive line. They've got 2 guys who are up for contract at the end of the year who they've used in rotations and will use in rotations again this year in Barnett and Sweat. As a former offensive lineman in the National Football League, they both have strengths and I don't want to call them weaknesses, but the rest of their game, which would you have the tougher time with? What Sweat does on a down-in, down-out basis, or what Barnett does as a down-in, down-out basis as a guy who would have to try and block him?
So I think Sweat, it's kind of weird to say this since he's the 4th-round pick and Barnett's the 1st-round pick. I think Sweat is a little more naturally gifted, and I think Sweat has better pass rush skills and traits. I feel like the thing that hurts Barnett is how high he was drafted. You know, the expectations are so high. If Barnett was a 2nd or 3rd round pick, people would be very happy with that.
Ross Johnson said that about 20 times over the last 4 weeks here on the show.
Said the exact
really?
same thing.
But he's not. So here's I'll tell you what I love about Barnett. He's still only 25. He plays so hard. Barnett is like, I think he's an ideal Robin, right? Like he's not a Batman, but I think he's an ideal sidekick because he is relentless and he's good against the run. He gives tremendous effort. He's going to get you like 5 hustle sacks a year just because of how hard he plays. And I still don't think we've seen the best from him because of the injury bug, which I think is partially because of how hard he played. I mean, even the other day at the joint practice on Monday I was at, he dropped in coverage and smoked the tight end for the Patriots. I mean, Barnett is a physical dude. And I think for the Eagles, I don't know, right now, I guess my guess is they'd probably end up playing about the same amount of snaps, 40% each maybe. I don't know what the number is, but because I think they got some other guys they can rotate through as well. But I think they'll play a bunch of snaps. I think it will sort itself out. With Brandon Graham's age being what it is, I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles wanted to try to find a way to bring both those guys back. I don't know if that's going to happen, but they're both good players.
Yeah, and Jonathan Gannon has said they're both starters. He considers them both starters. But yeah, Ross, I said the same thing. If Barnett's the 41st pick in that draft instead of the 14th pick, people say, "Oh, that's a really good, solid player." And it's interesting how pedigree works because Josh Sweat's got that 4th round tag on it. People don't realize when he went to Florida State, he was maybe the top recruit in the entire country coming out of high school, but he had a really bad leg injury that sort of had him tumbling. People questioning to this day, how long is that knee? How long is that leg going to hold up?
Well, and that's
from an athletic standpoint, he's unbelievable with the length and the size. He's got the full package. And by the way, he reminds me, this is ironic as well, he reminds me of Montez Sweat in Washington. Just the length to bat down balls at the line of scrimmage, great pass rusher. I think he's ready for a breakout season.
Yeah, maybe those guys are related. I don't even know. But, he was the number 1 ranked recruit in the country for a reason. I will say this in terms of a contract extension, the Eagles know a lot more about Josh Sweat's knee and Barnett's injury history than we do. But those things absolutely are a factor. I would just say, even last Thursday night, I'm mad I didn't circle him right before the play, but I saw Josh was in, bottom of the screen, and I was like, Josh Sweat, 3rd and long, here we go. And he went under the left tackle for the Steelers and got good pressure on Rudolph. I think Sweat, if you look at his pressures and his activity per snap last year, I think he was one of the highest guys in the league. I mean, I'm curious to see what he does getting even more opportunities.
It's funny that you mentioned Batman and Robin. You want to get really optimistic here. Sweat kind of reminds me of a former Batman here in town by the name of Clyde Simmons, who played across from a guy named White that you may recognize. If there ever was a Batman, Reggie White was it. We had a damn good Robin and the former partner on the other end, Clyde Simmons, all those years ago.
Jody Mack, that was my heyday as a fan. And that was going to games or watching them. I mean, Reggie and Clyde Simmons and Mike Pitts and Mike Golick and Jerome Brown. I mean, that was a bad. And the thing is, I got to look it up again. In my head, Clyde Simmons and Reggie were like 290, 300 pounds playing D end. I mean, to me, they looked huge.
Clyde Simmons was a huge guy. John talked about batting balls down. Clyde Simmons was superior at that. He got his hands in the passing lane as good as any defensive end during that time. All right, I want to keep the Batman-Robin analogy going. Eagles safety. We know who's going to start at one position, and that's the addition during the offseason of Anthony Harris, who John tells me has looked pretty good in practice. The other safety position seems to be open because we don't know what Rodney McLeod is. Is he going to be ready for game one? If not, is it going to be week 2 or week 3? If it's going to be a couple weeks in, who is going to be the other guy out there? How do you think the Eagles safety position shakes out for the first month of the season, Ross?
Well, it's interesting because in the production meeting yesterday, I got a chance to ask Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator, about that, and he feels pretty good about it. He likes the depth they have there and the makeup of those guys. He mentioned Epps. He mentioned Kayvon Wallace, who I think he did some stuff this week, right, John?
Yeah, he did. He was back.
Yeah, so hopefully
really
he gets some run tonight. And then obviously Andrew Adams. So I think they feel like they can win with any of those guys in there. And it's just a matter of what skill set they want to complement Anthony Harris with and how they want to use Anthony Harris, right? So I feel like, and this is just me, but it seems like Epps is more of a deep middle of the field safety coverage guy, and Kayvon Wallace is more of a box guy, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like if they want to use Anthony Harris more deep middle, like he did a lot in Minnesota, that maybe Wallace is the guy that has a little bit of an edge there because he's more of a box guy. Whereas if they want to play more Harris more in the box, then maybe Epps. My point is there's a lot of different factors involved.
Yeah.
It's not just who that safety is, like who they think the best guy is. It's what coverages they want. I mean, it might even be a matchup thing until McLeod. Are we going to be in the box a lot, or are we going to be at 2 deep safeties a lot? If we're going to be 2 deep safeties a lot, maybe we want to have Epps and his coverage back there. If we're going to be 1 safety in the box a lot, maybe we want Wallace because he's got more of that physicality. There's a lot of factors that are going to go into that decision, I think, and it might even be a week-to-week thing.
Yeah, you bring up a good point too, Ross, because I think the late addition of Steve Nelson coming here right before training camp, that gives JG more options, because I think if they had to put Michael Jaquette out there or Zach McPherson, unproven corners, they're probably playing more cover 2 or cover 3, and that's where Marcus Epps would be. And now he maybe mix and matches in games if Rodney's not allowed, and sort of lets those guys kind of complement each other. You don't want to get too, see Kayvon Wallace, so they're going to be in this defense. See Marcus Epps, they're going to be in this defense. But I think JG's a pretty inventive guy. I got an NFL offensive lineman here, so I got to shift to the offensive line. Everybody knows Jordan Mailata is the starting left tackle, but Nick Sirianni won't admit that, same as quarterback. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But your take on Jordan Mailata, and I know you were on that train early, just when he got here, I remember the first practice, Ross. The guy didn't know how to put on a helmet to where he is today. It's pretty stinking amazing. I can't think of a comparable ascent as Jordan Mailata.
Well, so let's put this in perspective. It's his 4th year ever playing football. For me, that was 9th grade. And by the way, I had grown up watching football all the time since I was 4 years old. So I try to think about like what I knew about the sport in 9th grade. And Mailata, this is his 4th year, and he didn't grow up watching it like I did. What I say about Mailata is I think he's got a high ceiling and a high floor. I feel like last year was the floor, right? He's going to be better this year than he was last year. So that now becomes the floor. And I think that floor is good enough. But the ceiling is, I mean, ceiling's as high as anybody in the NFL. I mean, they're just not making 6'8", 365-pound human beings that move as well as Jordan does. There's just not a lot of them. What does Parcells call those guys? Planet guys. There's only a couple of them on the planet.
I think you're cheating, Jordan, by the way. He's up to 380. He's up to 380.
That would not surprise me, John. I go by what they're listed as, which we know is always 100% accurate.
I got another offensive line question for you, Ross. You referenced him earlier, and I want to get a further take, if it fits what you went through at some point during your career. Landon Dickerson, second-round draft pick. People said he would have been a first if he hadn't gotten hurt at the end of the year. Eagles are bringing him along at the pace that they think is best. I'm guessing that the kid is chomping at the bit, that he wants to get out there so bad. He wants to hit somebody. He wants to play because that's what he is. And his reputation is that he's a very physical player to begin with anyway. So he wants to get at it. Did you at any time in your career have a significant enough injury where the team was, we'll bring you along slowly. We're not going to throw you to the wolves right away. And you would think, just give me a chance. Let me get out. Let me hit somebody. Did you ever have to deal with that? And how does the team best deal with a player who's so chomping at the bit to get back at it, but they're not sure it's the right thing to do and they don't want to take the risk?
Yeah, I mean, I had a back surgery. And here's the thing. When you're an active player, watching practice is actually really boring. Like, it's fun for John and for me to go to practice now and watch it. But when you could be out there playing, watching practice, I remember in Buffalo, I missed the first couple weeks of camp coming off a back surgery. And I remember thinking, gosh, this is actually really boring. Like, I can't wait to get out there and actually play because it is boring. It's not fun. Not only that, rehab stinks. Like, being in the trainer's room and all the different things you have to do, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable at all. So, yes, I'm sure he wants to be out there. But the Eagles' depth along the offensive line gives them the opportunity where they don't have to force him back. They don't have to rush him back. And they're not gonna. I mean, they invested a very important asset in him. And I think that's for the long haul.
Ross, and I want to encourage everybody to listen to the Ross Tucker podcast, which is obviously one of the best NFL podcasts out there, at Ross Tucker Pod. You see him there on Twitter at Ross Tucker NFL. Ross, we started with Jalen Hurts, how sharp he was in a limited sample size. I want to close out. My final question is what you think of Jalen Hurts as a leader, what he's done with this team. Guys seem to gravitate towards him. And let's be honest, these Deshaun Watson rumors, they don't go away when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Joe Banner was out there this week in the Philadelphia Inquirer saying, the Eagles are interested. A lot of people have reported that. I've reported that. The Eagles are interested. This kid seems to handle all the white noise so well, all the ancillary stuff. Nick Saban calls it rat poison. Maybe that's where he learned it. It's pretty impressive for a young kid to be able to do this. Is that just natural, or is that because what he went through at Alabama? What's your take on that?
I think playing at Alabama in that spotlight helped him quite a bit. I mean, remember, he started the national championship game as a true freshman, right? And won it. And then I also think the adversity he went through at Alabama, getting benched, being a backup, transferring to Oklahoma, I think once you go through all that, I don't think anything else is going to faze you anymore. And I'll say this, I talked to him last week. He is a very calm, cool customer. I mean, I asked him a bunch of questions and, he's very relaxed, very comfortable in that setting. And he's a cool customer. I mean, he didn't say a lot, but what he did, he meant it.
Ross, you mentioned that for doing your pregame stuff to be able to get ready to do the broadcast, you are given access to the coaches and get a chance to shoot the breeze with them and find out a couple of things ahead of time. What's the excitement level of this coaching staff right now? They've got one exhibition game under their belt. They got 2 more to go and then the whole regular season. But they're all new together. This staff was just put together during this off season. You're trying to accomplish things. You're trying to get prepped and as ready as you are. But you're also pretty damn excited. Like you were just talking about when you were a player. Practice is boring. Well, the coaches are involved in practice. They're doing what they do. They coach. So they're in the midst of it every single day. How do you balance the excitement against the, I got a job to do, I got to stay in the moment and stay focused and get ready for the regular season? Does it seem to you like the coaches are doing that balancing act well?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about last Thursday night was Nick Sirianni's first time as a head coach ever. It was Jonathan Gannon's first time calling a defense ever. I mean, that's a lot of newness.
Yep.
And the thing that both those guys have said to me separately is they are going to make some mistakes this year, and they know that. But coaches make mistakes all the time, whether we see them or not. Their whole thing is they're going to own it to the players. If they make a mistake, own up to it, and then do whatever they can to not make the same mistake twice, which, you hear all the time, but you don't often hear coaches saying that and admitting to that.
Russ,
real quick, Ross, I do want to sneak one thing in because I forgot to bring it up with you. The practices, the length of the practices have been a big story. 70 minutes at times, 75 minutes, a lot of movement, not much downtime. But as a former player, and the limitations on the system as a whole because of the new collective bargaining agreement, but can you get your work done in that kind of time frame? Is Nick Sirianni ahead of the game? Is he doing things a little bit outside of the box? How is that kind of stuff taken?
Well, so first of all, I don't think it's just a Nick Sirianni decision. I think it's an organizational decision. Yeah. Second of all, the concern would be the physicality, right? Because they're getting the walkthroughs in. They're getting the mental part of it in. Well, I said this the other night. I mean, Jordan Howard destroyed Robert Spillane from the Steelers on a blitz. That was amazing. The first offensive line blocked very well. The first defensive line, Javon Hargrave was out there killing dudes. The tackling from Singleton was really good. Sean Bradley was really good. Jaquette, McPherson. So what would be a concern to me would be the physicality and the tackling with the shorter practices, but I didn't see that. I mean, we'll see tonight, but I didn't see that certainly in week 1.
Ross, we know you'll be zoned in for tonight's game on top of your game, trying to impress your mom's friends in calling tonight's Eagles game. But a couple above and beyond things. When does the Russ Tucker podcast drop every week?
Yeah, so it's off season. It's 3 times a week. So I just did one with Greg Cosell this morning, breaking down all the rookie quarterbacks. And then we're a couple weeks away from it being daily. So if you want your 30 minutes of on-demand audio or video content from a former player, I do it Monday through Friday, starting week 1 of the NFL season. It's 3 times a week right now. I got a betting one, the Even Money podcast, a fantasy one, Fantasy Feast. I even got a college one. So try to have all the angles covered that people are really into in terms of listening to football.
He's getting into it every single day, starting soon with the beginning of the regular season. And something you've been doing for a couple of years now. You told me about this for the first time a couple of years ago. MyFrontPageStory.com. The first time you told me, I go, wow, that sounds really cool. You're still working on that, huh?
Yeah, a buddy of mine started it. I'm in it with him now. I'm just telling you guys, it's the best gift ever. Whether it's a birthday, anniversary, especially like Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. You literally talk to a writer, somebody like John McMullen, for 10 minutes about your wife or your mom. They write the most unbelievable story about them. And then, guys, it's framed with a picture of them. It looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper. It looks like it's on the cover of the Daily News or the Inquirer or whatever, right? It looks beautiful. And then when you give it to them, here's the key. I mean, all John ever does with his wife is gives her a gift card to Olive Garden and takes her out to the Olive Garden every year for her birthday. Okay, John,
come on, I go higher than that. Come on, Ross.
Okay, Chipotle, fine, Chipotle. I got it. but you can still give it to her and be like, hey, honey, I want to do something special for you this year. So I had somebody write a story about you. Your wife will be like, you had somebody write a story about me? And then when she'll be like, oh my gosh, when she sees it. And then when she reads the quotes where you're like, I just don't tell her enough how much I appreciate everything she does for, like, she will cry. I told my buddy, the name of it should be myfrontpagestory.com. She will cry. You will win. Myfrontpagestory.com.
You're probably right 99% of the time. My wife would say, why the hell didn't you write it? You're a writer. That's what she would say.
No, Russ, between you and me, McMullen's wife would say, I know you didn't write this. It's too well written. It can't be you, McMullen. Myfrontpagestory.com. Check it out. Russ Tucker will be watching you tonight, brother. Try and stay cool there in the booth. Are you going to have the window open again?
Yeah, I think I might wear like one of those little fan things around my neck, those like fan thingers. I gotta figure something out, man.
We'll be watching you sweat, and we'll be listening to you all night. Ross, thanks for coming on. We'll get you on when the season rolls around.
Sounds great. Take care. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. That's Russ Tucker, ex-NFL player turned Eagles pregame analyst. Does a great job on NBC 10 here in town, and we'll be on the call again tonight with Scotty Graham. So you got to check out Ross's work tonight, because we know you'll all be watching the Eagles. McMullen will be down here. I'll be sitting at home watching the game like you guys. We'll continue to break it down for you. John's right-hand man, Eddie Kratz, going to join us next hour. We're coming right back here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.